Welcome to another episode of Beyond I'm Fine. Today we're going to be talking about one of the biggest struggles many people face, which is often hidden behind closed doors, and that's gambling addiction. Gambling addiction is one of the easiest ones for people to kind of hide, and this is one of the biggest ones also that has a massive, devastating effect on people's mental health, finances and relationships. And today I've got my next guest, John Cortum. So John, thank you so much for joining today. Tell us a bit about yourself and why you wanted to share your story around this.
Yeah, well, I'm John, and the reason that I'm here with you, Mike, today is pretty much because I had doubts about being here. I had doubts about coming and talking about my story, and I think that itself is very much, that's a big issue. So, I kind of give myself a clap and said, no, you've got through it, so you need to share the story. You can't reflect on where you are in a good place unless you go back and you kind of have a look at where the worst parts were, and you've got through it. So
absolutely. So from there then, tell me where this kind of all started for you, where you saw the problem began and what was affecting you around that time.
Growing up, I had a little flutter on the slot machines and things like that, as you do. But there was no stakes to it back then. I was a kid living at home. My wages would be replenished the next week. My fridge was full. I didn't have to provide. I didn't have to, didn't have to give anything to anybody. So it was just for me. But when I think it really started is with the birth of my son. My son was born the day before my 29th birthday. It wasn't a straightforward. So my partner at the time, she went through quite a difficult labour, ended up in theatre, and I had a quite vivid moment where I was like, right, I'm going to lose my baby. I'm going to lose my partner. And it was quite traumatizing. And I didn't realize at the time the effect it had on me, because obviously for the doctors it's every day. They're doing forceps deliveries, they're doing whatever they have to make sure that baby and mother's fine. But I wasn't allowed to stay in the hospital. I went home. I wasn't having clear thoughts of anything. I was just, relieved that both my partner and my baby were fine. And from nowhere, I just started gambling. And I think it was that kind of trauma of, I'm going to lose one of my loved ones. And it was that instant click and change that I just became a dad. And now I had to protect and provide for more than just myself.
So the gambling, in a sense, then was kind of that escape for you, and that distraction away from what you'd just been through, that traumatic experience.
Yeah, I'd say that's what it was. And initially when I started gambling, I don't even think it was about money. It was about that escape. It was about getting outside of myself, outside of my worries, my life. But yeah, it escalated, and then it did become kind of an obsession, something that I couldn't shake off, something that kind of, just took over me.
A lot of people think it's kind of, I'm chasing the money, but it's not. It's that escape and trying to deal with and mask everything else that's going on, but also not kind of realizing the consequences that this is going to have later on down the line. Like we've just touched on, like the impact on relationships and finances. So kind of, How did that kind of start impacting you in that way?
Face on, I was still the cheery, likable guy that got on with everybody. But mentally, I was so fixated on the gambling that my work became terrible. My home life, I wasn't present. These are the early days of my first child being born, and I wasn't there really. I was there physically, but, I'd be doing night feeds and using it as an excuse to gamble and what have you. And yeah, it went down a slippery path.
What extent did it get to? Like how big of a problem? Because I know some people think, it's just the kind of couple of quid here, a couple of quid there. Like, and what extent did that go to?
When it got to its worst, because I think anyone that has been a gambler or can kind of at least loosely admit that they've got a gambling problem, they'll say that they think they've got control of it, they've got systems, they've got winning ways. But with me, at the lowest point, it really got to the whole thing they say about beg, borrow, steal. Like, I did all of those, you know. I lied to people. I was myself on the outside, but, you know, I became deceitful, and, you know, I wasn't able to just be open and honest and actually show what was going on the inside.
And I think that's the biggest problem with the gambling addiction. It's one of the easiest ones to hide. You can do whatever you want because it's so easily accessible now. It's on the phones. It's not just your kind of, oh, I'm going to buy a lottery ticket, or I'm going to go down to the casino. With the phone gambling, you can hide that in so many different ways. And like, I'll be honest, like I've discussed about myself before. I've been in a similar situation where the hiding of the gambling is a kind of, oh, you know, I spent money on this, oh, I spent money on that, but I haven't. I've actually gambled all my money.
Being a gambler, and especially if you're trying to hide it from loved ones like your partner, you can't celebrate the wins. You can't talk about the losses. You can't celebrate the wins. So the two that come to mind is being sat on the toilet 2:30 in the morning, waiting for an accumulator to come in, and it all came in early. So, you know, I turned a small amount into like £8,000 and was not able to have any reaction to it. I wasn't able to spend it because I'd have to explain where I was spending it from. So yeah, and then the next one after that then, and this is a proper sliding door moment in the whole story of my gambling. So I was my brother's best man. He was engaged, or he was supposed to be getting married. That didn't happen. That's another story. I was the best man, so I'd organised the bus, I'd organised the trips, I'd organised everything for the stag do. I took all the money for the minibus and I blew all of that money. So I blew £1,000 or whatever it was that the minibus was for. So a couple of days before the stag, I took out £1,000 loan to pay for the minibus, going on this stag do skint. But that weekend of my brother's stag do started the best streak I've ever had. So over the course of about 3 weeks, I was untouchable. I felt untouchable. And I think I won about 21 grand over the course of, you know, 2.5, 3 weeks. Felt like I had systems, felt like I was going to win everything. But what happened then is I had one conversation with one person. You know, you always speak about your wins when you're a gambler, especially if it's other gamblers. So I was speaking about, you know, I've won this money, I've paid off my debts, I've got a large amount of money now. This is the opportunity for me to the chance for me to get it out, let those people know, tell them I've been lucky, and we've got some money there. And then whatever the consequences might have been, I might still have been kicked out then, but at least I would have had it off my chest. And then the one line which my friend or colleague at the time said was, "John, you're winning everything. Keep going, you'll get your mortgage deposit." And that was the snap moment where my mentality of that whole provide, protect came over. I believed what he had said, or I just needed to hear what he said just to justify myself to keep gambling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so needless to say, that 21 grand went down to zero, to minus, to debts in less time than what I got it in.
And I think it's such an important thing to kind of touch on there. You know, it can just be that one line that kind of tips it over. Like you said, you were doing so well, you kind of had that chance to kind of make something and get out of it. But all it takes sometimes is just that one line to kind of fall back in that trap. So from there then, where did that take you then?
Well, basically that gave me time to keep gambling. So it probably prolonged the whole downfall of me for another 2 years. I think, and that's the thing with a gambling addiction, you won't stop unless you hit the rock bottom. So unless you end up on the streets, in prison, or, you know, you unfortunately take your own life, I think unless you hit that rock bottom, you're not going to stop. So yeah, it delayed me for about another 2 years. I kept gambling. I kept thinking I was going to build up this fortune, which was going to, you know, do what I always want to do, provide. But ultimately that was not what happened. It came to a head where all of my hiding and lying kind of came out. So it was literally a case of, what I used to do is I used to intercept the post. I used to stop the postman, because between mine and my partner's shifts at the time, I'd be like, right, she's on break, I'm on break, or she's in work, vice versa. I'll go get the post. This one time I didn't. She opened the credit card bill. She didn't even know I had a credit card. This credit card's maxed out. So the conversation started there. And I was relieved, because I was able to talk to her, tell her I had a problem. But unfortunately, it was too little too late, because a few days later, I had a phone call from my employer. So my gambling basically, came to that point where I'd done stupid things and people were talking. I wasn't hiding it as well as I thought I was, because I was in so deep. And unfortunately, that's where then I ended up losing my family life. I had to change my job, literally reset and start again with what was pretty much nothing.
Even though you've got these problems, like you touched on, that you felt like a big relief where you can talk, and that's such the message we're trying to get across, to speak out. It's so important that we speak out. So from that moment, then, did you find it easier to kind of speak to people about things and kind of start resetting and rebuilding your life around things?
I didn't start talking about this straight away. So what I did straight away is I got myself along to a local Gamblers Anonymous group. And it was in that where I realized all of this, which I'm keeping to myself, I'm thinking, I've got this problem, I'm this bad person. That wasn't the case. It wasn't a case of me being a bad person or being alone. There were so many stories which just resonated with me in terms of, that's exactly where I've been. I've done this, I've lied, I've hidden, I've gambled, I've wasted time, I've wasted money. So Gamblers Anonymous was the start of me being able to talk. And then kind of just got my head down and started deciding it was time to reset my life a little bit then.
A lot of people kind of think, I know these support groups, it's just a lot of people sitting around there and talking. And how did you find that it did help you?
It helped me in the sense that I was able to relate with other people in the room and realize that, there's ways through it. There's people there that have been there, all different amounts of time. Some people have only been there a few weeks. Some people have been there for years. Some people have relapsed. The thing going to Gamblers Anonymous that helped me the most is probably to put barriers in place to stop me from going back down the rabbit hole again. And kind of, there is life without it. So that's what it kind of taught me. I'm not religious, but they do say something in Gamblers Anonymous which did stick with me. And that's grant me the serenity to know what I can't change, the courage to change what I can, and then the wisdom to know the difference. And, the basics of that is, don't worry about what you can't control. Put the work in, to stop relying on luck and what have you. And put the work in and you'll get somewhere, just be patient.
Was there any other support or any other coping mechanisms that you used about the gambling to kind of help you kind of move forward? And
for quite a while afterwards, I inverted myself a little bit. So I went inwards, decided it was just time to get my head down, eat some humble pie, and just regain kind of the appreciation for just hard work to get you something, which, the whole provide and protect, if I just done that in the first place, I would have been in a better place anyway. So, I got myself a job and, I cracked on, got my head down and just put the pieces back together slowly by slowly.
And I remember, obviously, we met up a couple of weeks ago and we had a good chat about this. I can understand, this had a kind of big impact on relationships and things like that as well, because you had a lot of self-doubt and kind of punished yourself in a sense.
That's the thing about the gambling. The addiction's not all that you are, but it does kind of, if you start to try and think about what the feelings are that are making you do it, it starts to you start to connect with yourself a little bit, and you realize the reasons why you do things. And, you know, as I got a little bit over it and I got a little bit older, I started to realize that gambling's just a symptom of all those things, like low self-esteem, not feeling like I'm enough. On the flip side of feeling like I might be too much, you know, trying to balance between being too much and not enough is, you know, it's a hard battle. So, yeah.
And tell us, where are you now? How are things now, and kind of where have you got to in a good place and things like that?
So I lost my job on the 31st of May, 2019. My life went to shit then. But then I put in the hard work, and then 31st of May, 5 years later, I got offered the best job I've ever had. Since then, I've kind of just put my head down, and I've just started to learn to love myself again. Try to leave the past behind me and just approach the future with kind of that attitude that, you know, you've got through this. But yeah, I'm in a good place now, a really good place. Yeah, so I've got a good job, I've got a good family, I'm present with my children. I met a great woman just about 8 months ago, and life's looking good.
Good.
Potential fiance.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, very good.
John, and I think this is such an important message for people watching. Do you know what I mean? I think gambling is such, like we touched on in the beginning, is such a big problem, and it's so easy to hide. People think that they can't get out of it. So from listening to you today, I think so many people can relate to this and realise that there is ways out there. There is ways to cope with it. And it's kind of understanding why you're gambling. I think once you can kind of master that, things become easier. I've got one last question for you. Can you remember the last time that you said you were fine, but you actually weren't?
I'm probably as hormonal as women sometimes. It was probably a couple of weeks ago. I was probably tired after night shifts, and my missus asked me if I was fine, and maybe I wasn't. You know, maybe I was, just that tired emotion. You know, when you're overtired, that's when the emotions come out. And, you know, the past can haunt you. And I think I probably had, you know, there's times where I still have those self-esteem issues. I have those self-doubts. Am I lovable? Am I enough? So it's probably happened in the last couple of weeks. But the difference being now is that I talk about it. Yeah. And my partner listens and communicates very well and tries to understand me at least.
You look back and like where you were before, and I think the old John would have thought, oh, I'm never going to be there. So like looking back at that, you can kind of take so much comfort from where you've come from.
Oh yeah, I'd say I didn't think I was going to make it at times. With any kind of mental health issue, whether it's addiction, whether it's depression, anxiety, you know, we all get those lows, and there was definitely a moment where I had those feelings of, should I just end it? Luckily, my response to that was, shut up, stop, speak, accept help, listen, and don't judge.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with everyone. I think a lot of people can take a lot from this, so thank you very much.